Carnivore gene. That's right. Your DNA can be predisposed to have what we call a carnivore gene. Well, actually, several. And I'm going to introduce you to these genes today. So, some people absolutely thrive on a carnivore diet. So, let's unpack what that means. So, let's get deep into the weeds. So, inside your DNA, you've got these things called single nucleotide polymorphism. So, in a nutshell, your DNA has a letter sequence and they encode for proteins that do work. So up the top there, profile A, that's a high functioning protein that works beautifully. Now, sometimes we've got these alterations, and everybody has these alterations. And your DNA makes an altered protein, and as you can see, I'm circling around here, it just looks a little bit different, so it doesn't work as efficiently as it should. That's really all it comes down to. And working with genetic experts, I've come to understand that some people like myself have crap genes and they start to experience health symptoms in their 20s and 30s. That's me. Some people, probably 35, 45, 55 average, and people with elite genes, man, they can get to 80 and 90 and be kicking ass. They have just won the genetic lottery. It's as simple as that. The first gene in question is what we call the carnivore gene. And I'm going to play a video for you by Dr. Paul Mason. You see, humans have cholesterol and plants have cholesterol. And some people that have this gene here, this single nucleotide polymorphism, they absorb a lot of plant cholesterol, which we can't use. So it really screws up a lot of things that cholesterol are used to do. So listen to this video from Dr. Paul Mason.
Is something which I term fake plant cholesterol. You would have heard of plant sterols or phytosterol. And these chemicals, I think we can mount a very strong argument they are absolutely deleterious to the human body. And they are in high concentration in seed oils and vegetable oils. They're in basically every plant food. So we get a not insignificant contribution to our phytosterol or fake plant cholesterol load from cereals by virtue of how much we eat. But on a gram for gram basis, seed oils provide us with the most. Now, the thing is, this imitates cholesterol, and in some cases the body can absorb it. But when it absorbs it, the body tries to do things with it that it would normally do, that it would normally use cholesterol for, but because of some molecular variation, very subtle molecular variation, it can't do it. So it basically leads to deficient functions of things that cholesterol is normally used for. And this is in the context of the fact that most of us will only absorb about 1% of the plant sterols we consume because our body is doing its damnedest to try not to absorb them. It's kicking them out. But if you consume a bucket load in seed oils, in a standard Western diet, then some is going to get through. So we only absorb about 1%, but some people absorb a lot more. They've got a genetic change in their DNA that leads to just excess absorption of plant sterols. That condition is called cytosterolemia.
Carnivore gene. So what I'm going to also show you is there's a lot more carnivore genes that we have picked up on. Now, I've tested probably close to well over 300 people now, and I'm seeing this one gene alone at about 15% of the people that we test. And as you can see there, this is just one gene. There's actually several genes in this whole plant sterol conundrum here. There's something you can do if you don't want to do gene testing. If you're in the US, that is, you can't do this here in Australia. The Boston Heart Cholesterol Balance Test. So they're actually testing for these beta cytosterols. And this gentleman here that I'm working with, guess what? He doesn't have that gene. Yet he was eating a lot of these plant fats and he was absorbing them. Now that's not too helpful at all, as you've just heard Dr. Paul Mason talk about. Now, one reason is it screws up things that cholesterol do. So about 20% of the brain's weight is cholesterol. You need it to make your sex hormones and also things like cortisol, and we need healthy levels of cortisol. Also vitamin D, bile acids so you can detox and absorb your foods. CoQ10, which I'll talk about on the next slide. All the way through the complex 4 of the electron transport chain. Squalene for skin health. And all of our cell membranes by molecular weight, that's the phospholipid bilayer, 50% is our friend, cholesterol. And also the myelin sheath. So the myelin sheath is in the brain, it's in our central nervous system. When it starts to fail, you get things like MS, which isn't helpful at all. Now, here's some of the roles that CoQ10 provide. Now, this is derived from our friend, it is our friend, cholesterol. It's important for the synthesis of ATP. It's a powerful antioxidant, and it helps prevent oxidative stress and prevents LDL, not cholesterol, because LDL cholesterol is a misnomer. It's lipoproteins, and cholesterol is inside this lipoprotein from oxidization. It also boosts NAD plus levels. You don't need to supplement that bullshit. Reduces inflammation, boosts immune function, promotes heart health, regulates blood pressure, migraines, enhances exercise performance, skin health with squalene, neuroprotective, and also fertility. So as you can see there, it's pretty damn important. So the CoQ10, this is the electron transport chain where you produce your ATP and molecular water and also CO2. So what happens is when we eat food, we've got electrons that go through the inner mitochondrial membrane through complex 1, 2, and 3. And CoQ10, made from our friend cholesterol, transports them through these complexes. So if you've got this plant sterol issue, you won't have great energy levels, great testosterone levels, great antioxidant levels, and all of those things. So as you can see, pretty damn important. Now, another interesting thing, as we now know it screws up our sex hormone production, what it's also going to screw up is the conversion of testosterone into dihydrotestosterone. So let me just give you a bit of an insight to dihydro. Dihydro, number one, has a 2 to 5 times higher binding affinity to the androgen receptor. And that's pretty big. 2, it has a 10-fold higher potency at inducing androgen receptor functions than testosterone. Now, I've identified a list of 15 things that inhibit or slow down 5-alpha reductase to convert testosterone into the most powerful androgen, dihydrotestosterone. And I've got a couple of videos here to play from Dr. Kyle Giblett and Professor Huberman just to really show you how powerful DHT truly is. Check this out.
Oh, yeah. But I had reported my own anecdotal experience that taking turmeric really crushed my DHT levels, and I did not feel good. I mean, it crushed all sorts of positive feelings of vitality. The moment I stopped taking turmeric, felt great again.
Many people report this.
Yeah. So that's turmeric there, and it's on this list ranking from highest to lowest. It's number 3. Now, let's listen to the second part about sexual function.
Finasteride inhibits the isoenzyme that is in genital skin, but not in the skin throughout the rest of your body. So a lot of the side effects of finasteride, which is loss of sensation and loss of erectile function, have to do with the disconcordance between the sensitivity of the genital skin and the skin.
Again, another reason to not disrupt 5-alpha reductase.
So we certainly don't want to do that. And these beta cytosterols there, and especially if you have that carnivore gene that we have now coined, you're going to run into some troubles. As I mentioned before, this person that I'm helping doesn't have that gene yet. He's got a lot of beta cytosterol. So he's missing out on the power of dihydrotestosterone. Now, the next carnivore gene. So retinol is super important in your body for a lot of different things. Immune system, stem cells, thyroid, skin health, multitude of things that it does. Now, some people have a lowered conversion of beta carotene from plants into vitamin A retinol for humans. This is my good friend, Dr. J, just speaking about that. Check this out.
this beta carotene gene is kind of an anti-vegan gene because she has a 90% reduced conversion of carotene to retinol.
Wow, yeah. Okay, so that's thyroid, like the retinols for thyroid, gut health, immune health. Holy cow.
Yeah, stem cells. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is huge, this one.
Yeah, I think it's more important than a lot of people would think, because carrots, people say to eat carrots. They're like, oh, eat carrots, they're good for your eyes. Well, they're not good for your eyes because your eyes don't have any carotene. Your eyes have retinol. And if you're not converting the carotene to retinol, then it's bad for your eyes because
absolutely
you're not able.
So there's another carnivore gene. So basically, the conversion of beta carotene into retinol, you got this altered protein here, does it very slowly, 90% diminished capacity. So when it comes to making a lot of energy for you, metabolism, thyroid, T3 comes into the nucleus of the cell to upregulate your metabolism, and it triggers the thyroid hormone receptor. Now, number two, retinol has to bind to it at the same time to make it work. So you could have okay T3 levels, but if you've got that retinol issue, 90% diminished capacity, a few of the people that we tested do have that, you got an energy problem. All of these things here, cardiovascular, metabolism, growth, all of those things kind of start to tap out. So that is thing number two. Well, let's talk about two more things. A lot of people that we are testing, or probably about 25%, are sensitive to what's called nightshades. And nightshades are in foods. And then probably just over 60% have a sensitivity to lectins. Some of the people that we've helped have a very high sensitivity to lectins. They must abstain from lectins, and they're in a lot of foods, while others have a very low sensitivity. But the problem becomes if you've got inflammation or a sick gut or an autoimmune process is playing out, you must abstain until you correct those issues. So this is the nightshade issue. Check this out.
With fatigue, you want to know what's causing fatigue. Here it is. Yeah, nightshades are definitely contributing.
So the nightshades over here, they're very toxic to your gut. As you can see there, they are going to cause a lot of mast cell activation, histamine issues, and all these inflammatory processes to go up, and they actually can cause inflammatory bowel disease. So if you have the nightshade issue, big problem. I have this issue, and before I knew this, I always had a pretty sick gut because I was told to eat a Mediterranean diet, and there's lots of nightshades in that diet. And supplements as well, like ashwagandha, are nightshades. So a lot of the supplements that you're taking, they could be backfiring on you. Now, lectins. Let's listen to what Dr. J has got to say about lectins.
The lectin is the big one. That's a 4-fold higher risk of heart disease, even as a plus minus, the SELE.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, so lectins are going to trigger a lot of damage to the arteries and damage to the gut. I would recommend avoiding grains.
Yeah.
Grains are the major source of lectins.
Yeah.
And his gut's very sensitive to grains also, the gluten. And he's got a thyroid gene that comes up later with gluten as well. So I would say just take off the grains,
That's no small thing. 4-fold increased risk of heart disease, and they'll blame LDL. And you've also got gut issues and thyroid issues on top of that. So not helpful at all. Now, as you can see here, when you've got a sick gut right here, your gut speaks to every organ in your body. So the gut-brain axis, stress, anxiety, depression, lack of motivation, IBS, schizophrenia, cognitive decline, and even autism. And then just check that out. We're talking about your endocrine system is disrupted, all your hormones, the gut-heart axis, so cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, thrombotic events, high blood pressure, lungs, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, liver, pancreas, bones, the muscle axis. That's right. So you find it very difficult to get the body that you want back on the muscle, skin issues, even alopecia, hair loss. And then the ball sack, your gonads, the gut, ball sack axis, kidneys, and bladder. So a lot of these foods are destroying your gut, and you just get used to this low performance. And then, unfortunately, you believe what these ass clowns, the system says. that as you age, you're on the decline. Never back that fucking idea. Never back that idea. Now, another thing that these foods can cause is food allergies and intolerances, and that's going to screw up your sleep. So when your sleep is screwed up, that's a big, big problem. So as you can see here, number one, emotions. You got fluctuations in mood, irritability, anxiety, loss of empathy, frustration. Impulsivity, negative salience, more negative thoughts than you want to have. And then because you're absolutely fatigued, what do you use? Stimulants to rev you back up, which most of the time fucking backfire. Then at the end of the day, you've had enough, so you go to alcohol to take the edge off the anxiety. Number two, you've got cognitive issues. Your cognitive performance tanks, memory consolidation. So you read this book or you take this course at school, whatever. The next day or two, it just kind of all goes. You think, Jesus, man, I just can't learn well. Then your attention, your concentration, your communication, your decision-making, and your creativity and productivity. Your motor performance in the gym and your social connectivity just goes to shit. So it's just like, I've had enough. I just want to go home. I want to be left alone. Leave me alone. And then you've got the long-term health consequences, daytime sleepiness, micro sleeps driving your vehicle, cardiovascular disease, altered stress response, altered sensory thresholds, infection, lowered immunity, cancer, metabolic abnormalities, diabetes, depression, and even psychosis. So as you can see, that these food sensitivities that your DNA doesn't like are harming your long-term health. And another one that we've picked up on is mushrooms. So you've got 1, 2, 3 single nucleotide polymorphisms. Again, it's just an altered protein. And the thing about mushrooms, they've got a lot of what's called ergothioneine in them. So if you do have this one here, the CT allele or the CC allele, you have a 2.1 increased risk of Crohn's disease, gut issues, because there's a boatload of ergothioneine in mushrooms. So what I want to talk about right now is the old cholesterol issue, right? So I'll come back to this, but first I want to play this video. So this is Professor Bart Kay. He's got an advanced degree in nutrition, exercise physiology, and he's also a cardiopathophysiciologist. So he has researched heart disease for about 25 years. So what I'm going to do is play this video. This is a conversation I had with Professor Bart, and I asked him the question about the true cause of heart disease. So listen to this. Yeah. All right. The final thing I want to touch on is, your thoughts on the true cause of heart disease. I know being a cardiopathophysiciologist, you're saying that it's a mechanical issue. It's not in the veins at all, and that it's an inflammatory immune disease. Yeah. So, so I guess the foods are a big cause of that.
Yes, in a roundabout sort of a way. To talk about the direct mechanical hemodynamics of this disease is where we have to start. Because when I learned how to do logical constructions in terms of cause and effect relationships as part of my scientific training, my professor had the forethought to say, look, what you need here is a deterministic model. And a deterministic model is one in which you build a tree which says this leads to that, leads to the other thing, where anything that you put in a circle has to be completely explained by what is feeding into that circle.
Yep.
So, to say a generalized statement that lipids or any form of lipids or phospholipids or any of that stuff causes heart disease fails that deterministic test immediately, because all I need to do is say, right, where do atherosclerotic lesions develop? The answer is, well, there's two parts to that answer. The first part, a more generalized answer, is it occurs only in arteries, never in veins. unless you take a vein out of the venous system and put it in the arterial system. Then it does develop atherosclerosis. What does that tell you?
Right. Yeah, that's all telling there.
That tells you that, because here's the thing. Do veins and arteries both carry the same blood circulation? Yes.
Yep.
Is the same cholesterol and the same concentration, give or take, in both sides of the vascular system? Yes. Ergo, there is an elimination of the possibility that the lipids are the cause. It cannot be so.
Yeah.
Right there. The second thing is, you go, well, okay, they only happen in the high pressure side of the circuit, so pressure is involved. It has to be in some way.
Yeah.
That's a deterministic thing. That makes sense, logically. Until you then go, well, hang on a minute, though. Atherosclerotic lesions do not develop evenly across the endothelial surface on the high pressure side. They develop in patches, in predictable places in that vascular tree that we know exactly where they're going to be. That's why we go and look for them there.
Right. That's where the
And what
turbulence
else?
is.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do we need to cause atherosclerosis to occur? We need turbulent blood flow, which is more likely if the pressure is higher chronically. We need endothelial cell damage, injury, chemical derangement by glycation, oxidation, whatever else. We need the migration of a bunch of adhesive factors to those tissues, and the job of those adhesive factors is to grapple onto LDL particles and retain them there.
Yeah.
Why? So that they can offload their cholesterol so that the damage to that tissue can be repaired.
Yeah. And as I heard you say, the cells are 50% cholesterol by weight, molecular weight. So it makes
Cell
sense.
membranes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So blood pressure and any kind of oxidative stress, whether it's chemical stress and plant stress, I guess you could say. That's
Glycation is another big one.
Glycation, fructose.
Yep.
That's I think a lot of people eat way too much fruit. And Paul Saladino, damn.
Paul Salad, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, his way of dealing with the fact that he absolutely cannot foot it with me in a discussion about any of this stuff is to pretend he doesn't know who I am.
And he interviewed you 5-6 years ago, man.
Several times.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got his head buried in the sand, I think.
Well, somewhere probably warmer and wetter than that, I think, frankly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's for another day. So, yes, blood pressure, turbulent blood flow, mechanical damage to the tissues.
Yeah.
It's like the analogy where they teach firefighters. They say fire needs 3 things. Remove any one of those things and you cannot have a fire.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with atherosclerosis. Remove any one of those major ingredients, the disease cannot progress.
Pretty simple, then.
And not one of those things is LDL or cholesterol or ApoB or any of the subfractions of any of the lipoproteins. It's not a lipid dysfunction.
Yep.
It is a mechanical injury inflammatory process.
Yeah. I fully believe that now after listening. Like, I had no clue that the lesions and also the plaque didn't build up in the veins. I had no clue about that.
They also don't contain cholesterol. They say cholesterol-rich streaks, fatty streaks. No. There's bugger all cholesterol in an atherosclerotic plaque. It's scar tissue.
Scar tissue.
Yeah.
Fibrosis.
That's right. Exactly. Yep. And then later, in a very advanced case, it becomes calcified. That's what the CAC scan's about.
Right.
Measuring that.
Yeah.
So everything that we've been taught about the etiology of atherosclerosis is false from the ground up. Demonstrably, easily false, explainable within several minutes, even to someone who has no training in the area, as I've just done.
Yeah. When I heard that, man, it was just like a light bulb went off my head. Like, all right. So that's Professor Bart K. Now, Dr. J, who I also work with, he says the same thing. When he did his 5-year PhD on sex hormones, he also did it on cholesterol. And this is kind of what he says about the system, the arse clowns that are feeding us this information.
Yeah, it's not thriving. It's definitely suboptimal. It's frustrating, honestly. I mean, especially on the topic of testosterone, because if your testosterone goes down, just your health in general goes down. So that opens the door to a bunch of prescription drugs.
Yeah.
And so the pharma companies are very excited about keeping your testosterone down from a financial perspective.
Exactly.
As a business model, it's a good idea for them.
So one of their business models is prescribing people these metabolic poisons called statins. They inhibit this pathway here called HMG-CoAce. So when that's inhibited, you don't have this pathway powered up. So indirectly, that's going to lower glutathione. And let's just start there. Low glutathione levels, neuro and brain, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Hunting's, ALS, migraines, MS, autism, ADHD, ADD, bipolar depression, cardiovascular, diabetes, hypothyroidism, HIV, cancer, lupus, infections, asthma, acne, Lyme, allergies, gingivitis, arthritis. And over here, we've got inflammatory skin conditions, accelerated aging, more arthritis, chronic fatigue, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, gout, hepatitis, cystic fibrosis, infertility, eyesight, and gastric ulcers. So, as you can see there, this pathway is powered down. Then over here, you've got decreased protein synthesis, so you get muscle issues. And then, of course, cholesterol is turned into hormones like sex hormones, and also you've also got the stress hormone. It's not really a stress hormone, cortisol. We need that at healthy levels, antioxidants, and also you've got CoQ10, which I've already covered. So basically, in a nutshell, as Professor Bart said, it's an inflammatory autoimmune process with mechanical issues and turbulent blood. Now, here's part of my genes here, and I've got a hair trigger for inflammation. So based on all the labs that I've done now, my inflammation is well under control. One of the markers is what's called high sensitive CRP, and you need it around about 1 and below, and generally mine now is about 0.25 and maybe 0.28. So well under control there because I'm eating an appropriate diet for me. My circadian rhythm is on point. I'm training. My mindset is strong. I've got good gut health. So as you can see there, the carnivore gene is a real thing. You've got issues with these cytosterols, which you can actually test for. You've got issues with energy production of lack of CoQ10. You're also going to have issues with dihydrotestosterone testosterone and sex hormone production. You've also got issues with converting beta-carotene into retinol, then all of these other issues like nightshades, lectins, inflammatory bowel disease, gut issues, and they tell you, these ass clowns, that as you age, you are on the decline. Never back that idea. You've just got to work out how to get to a place where you're eating the appropriate foods for you. If you want more information on that, drop a comment below, and I can certainly do some more videos all about that. And, you know, for me, my whole idea in life is working out my blueprint for my body and also my mind so I can thrive and have a lot of energy and just kick ass in life. So the carnivore gene, as far as I'm concerned, is a real thing. And some people that you can see clearly now why they do thrive. So I hope you found this video informative and helpful.